learning from Parshat Behar. It's actually a double parsha. We'll be concentrating on Parshat Behar, and almost the entire portion. It's a very, very unique portion because it's about one subject. An entire portion is about one subject, and that is the sabbatical year, and along with it, different laws that go along with the sabbatical year. It's, like I said, very, very unique that a whole portion will be taken on really one subject. So for those who want to look, it's chapter 25. We'll be reading verse 8 and 9. So it says, V'sefarta lecha sheva shabbatot shanim, sheva shanim, sheva pa'amim. It says, and you will count 7 sabbatical years, 7 years, 7 times. V'hayu lecha yemei sheva shabbatot hashanim, tesha v'arbaim shana. And it will be to you the 7 sabbatical years times 7 will be 49 years. And the next verse says, V'havarta, well, actually I'm going to skip the next verse and go to verse number 10. V'kidashtem et shanata hamishim shana, v'kratem dror ba'oretz, l'chol yoshveha, yovel hi, Tiyelachem v'shavtem ish el achuzoto v'ish el mishpachto tashuvu. So the 10th verse says, and you will sanctify the 50th year. Remember, we just learned that we count 7 times 7 years, 49 years, and that the 50th year will be called freedom in the land to all of its inhabitants. It is a jubilee year to you, and each person will return to their inheritance, and each person to their family will return. Okay, so here we see that first we're told about the sabbatical year called Shemitah. And then we're told that it's not just every 7 years, but you have to count 7 times 7 years, 49 years altogether. Then the 50th year is the Jubilee year, the Yovel year. So first of all, we can identify immediately the exact process that we're going through right now. We are counting 7 weeks, 7 days times 7 weeks. We're counting 49 days of the Omer, and the 50th day is Shavuos, when we received the Torah at Sinai. So you see, it's like a parallel structure here. 7 times 7, and then the 50th is either Shavuos or Yovel. But I want to concentrate on a Rashi here. So Rashi gives an opinion that we're going to discuss now, and then he admits that what he is saying now is what's called a drasha. It's more of a allegorical, metaphorical type of teaching, and because he follows with saying, but the simple meaning is that 7 times 7 equals 49, just like the verse says. So what does he say first, though? He says the following. The verse is telling you that even if you don't keep the 7 Shemitah years, maybe don't keep them at all, maybe keep them partially, keep them 99%, but not 100%. Rashi says, still, when the Yovel comes, you should observe the 50th Jubilee year. Meaning, and that's what we're going to discuss tonight. There's a lot of ramifications from what Rashi is telling us here. Basically, what he's saying is, if you didn't do the mitzvah, that doesn't mean you can't do the next mitzvah. So that sounds like, okay, but I'd like to tell a number of stories to try to illustrate this. Again, the idea is, just because I was lax, I forgot, I didn't do it properly, I shouldn't say to myself, I blew it. I can't now keep the Jubilee year. I didn't keep the Shemitah years. How can I keep the Jubilee year? So Rashi comes and tells us, no, don't think like that. Even if you didn't do it, that doesn't mean you shouldn't do the Yovel year. So here's a story. It's an amazing story. It's found, if anyone has it, it's in the Carlebach Haggadah. And here's the story. Reb Shlomo was once in Waco, Texas. It's not one of those places that you think of a thriving Jewish community, but apparently at one point there was a nice sized Jewish community, small. And when he was there, he found out there was a mikvah. So he was, wow, a mikvah in Waco, Texas. So he's going to the mikvah. As he's about to go into the mikvah, a Cadillac pulls up. A very large person comes out of the Cadillac with a big cowboy hat, a big chain, metal chain around his neck, and he's like going into the mikvah. So Reb Shlomo is like, who are you? It would be like the last person that Reb Shlomo would think of meeting on the way into a mikvah. So he says, who are you? So this is the story he said, this person said. He said, my family comes from Vizhnitz. Vizhnitz is actually a very, very famous place. It's not a huge place, but there was a very, very famous Rebbe, the Vizhnitzer Rebbe. And to this day, there are many, many Vizhnitz Hasidim all over the world, especially in Israel. And he said, my family is from Vizhnitz. And before we left to come to America, I was a little boy. And on the Shabbos, excuse me, on the Shabbos before we left Vizhnitz, my father wanted me to see at least one time the Vizhnitz Rebbe. So it was on Shabbos, he brought me there, and there were so many people, and my father didn't know where to put me because I was like the only kid there. So he put me under the table. I was only 4 or 5 years old, right at the feet of the Vizhnitz Rebbe. So they're having their meal, but at one point the Vizhnitz Rebbe gets up, and he's like on fire, and he says, I want to tell you, sometimes you're going to be about to do a mitzvah, and there's going to be this negative voice in your head saying, what are you getting so excited about? You don't always do mitzvot. Why are you doing this mitzvah? And this voice plants doubt in our minds. And even if you always do mitzvot, but maybe you don't do it with so much enthusiasm, and this time you really feel like doing it with your whole heart and soul, and there's that voice saying, come, what are you getting so excited about? You're doing a mitzvah. What's the big deal? So the Vizhnitz Rebbe said, don't listen to that voice. Don't listen to that voice. He said, tell that voice in my name, go away, leave me alone. Right now, I want to do a mitzvah, leave me alone. So this is a story that this man is telling Reb Shlomo. He says, I have to be honest. Sometimes I keep Shabbos a little bit. Sometimes I don't. Sometimes I eat on Yom Kippur. Sometimes I fast. But I'll never forget that when the Vizhnitzer finished talking and he sat down, he put his hand on my head under the table and he said, did you hear what I said? Don't ever forget it. So he said, this morning, I got this arousal. I need to go to the mikvah. And even though it's like all of a sudden I'm going to go to the mikvah, I haven't gone to the mikvah in like who knows how many years. But I'll never forget what the Vizhnitzer Rebbe told me. Right now, I feel like doing a mitzvah. I'm going to go and do the mitzvah. So this is a little bit of a funny story, but it's a very, very deep story. And this applies to those people who keep mitzvot and are observant, but maybe are so much in a routine that even the thought of doing something different or something with taking on a new type of way of serving God, don't even think about that, let alone people who are not used to keeping mitzvah. And then all of a sudden, they get this arousal. So now I'm going to tell another story, the second story. So this is a story that may or may not be true. In other words, I heard this, and I don't remember if it was like actually a true story or it's more of a parable. Either way, it doesn't really matter. The story is that there is a observant Jew who works in an office, and he befriends another Jew in the office. They become very, very friendly. So one time he invites his friend to come to synagogue on Friday night and then back to his house for a beautiful festive meal. And he assures him that the congregation is very, very friendly. And my wife is a tremendous cook. You'll really enjoy it. And the man said, no, thank you very much, no. Okay. A week or two later, he extends the invitation again. Very, very forthcoming, very inviting. Again, very short. No, I can't join you. Thank you. He invites him a third time, but this time he says, is there something I should know why you're so quick to refuse my invitations? So the man said like this, I'll tell you the truth. If I go with you this Friday night, I might like the services. And if I go back to your house and I experience a beautiful Shabbos meal, then I'm going to start thinking the following. I go to shul one time. Why am I not going more than one time? Maybe you're going to invite me again. And then I'm going to go again. And then you're going to invite me a third time, and I'm going to go a third time. And I'm going to start to like it. But then I'm going to think, what a hypocrite. You go to shul once a week. Why aren't you going to shul more than that? You eat kosher once a week, and the rest of the time you're eating at non-kosher restaurants. So then I'm going to have to start keeping kosher. I'm going to have to kosher my whole house. I'm going to have to start putting on talis and tefillin and going to shul every day. So that's why I won't go with you. So again, it sounds somewhat ludicrous, but many, many people actually think like this, maybe not as extreme, but there are voices in our head that discourage us and will tell us, you've tried to change so many times. Who are you fooling here? You're going to start a diet for the 17th time. You're going to promise this. You're going to promise that. You're going to speed walk for 3 straight days. And then what? You're going to continue it? Let's be real here. Who are you fooling? What a hypocrite. And people hear these voices, maybe not the exact words, and it discourages people. People get into a comfort zone and are truly afraid to try something new, to expand our spiritual horizons, and afraid of, if I keep a mitzvah now, isn't it hypocritical? I go to shul once a year. So this is another very known thing, which is called the twice a year Jew. Someone who belongs to a shul, pays full dues, and only comes on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. So many people, in a certain way, talk very negatively about people who act like this. But also I heard from Reb Shlomo the following thing, which totally changed my mind of how to look at this. He said, you know what it's like? It's like a parent whose children lives far away, and they don't call that often. They don't write that often, but they do make an effort to come visit once or twice a year. Now, the parent could be very resentful, could be saddened by this, but when his children actually show up, what a joy. What a joy. I might as well take advantage of, I complained the whole year that you don't come. Now that you're here, either I can hit you over the head with guilt, or I can truly enjoy your being here. So Reb Shlomo said it's the same thing with God. Maybe God wants us to show up every week. But if someone's only going to come once or twice a year, we have to believe that God is so happy that at least they're coming twice a year. I'm so happy to see them. I'm so happy to see them. Unfortunately, we know the alternative of how many Jews never step foot in a shul, that probably don't even know when Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur is. It's not even that they choose not to fast. They might not even notice it on the calendar. They haven't been in synagogue in years. So all of these ideas is coming from this one Rashi, because it sounds like maybe Rashi isn't telling us so much, but he's telling us quite a bit. He's telling us that, and I'll add here that the Jubilee year is called a year of freedom. And we blow the shofar on Yom Kippur on the 50th year, and we declare it a Jubilee year. The Sanhedrin, the High Court, declares it a year of freedom. So relating to all of the cases that we talked about today, is freedom means I'm not totally bound by my past. There are many, many people who get what are called hitorarut l'tshuva, who have an inspiring moment which could lead them to really change their life completely. But then comes that voice, like, oh, come on. You're X years old. you're going to change your whole lifestyle now? Come on, who are you kidding here? Okay, you had an arousal. You stood at the kotel and you had this amazing experience that maybe I really should be more connected to Jewish tradition. Maybe I should start doing some of the mitzvot. And then the voice comes saying, come on, let's get real here. So this is a very, very important idea. And that's what I wanted to share with everyone, is that freedom means that I can be free in the moment without having the past tie me down and without fearing what the future would be. That's why the guy refused to come to shul, is because he feared of what it would mean if I enjoyed myself in the present, what it would mean in the future. So that person in that story or parable shuts himself off to having a real experience that even sounds that he knows that he's going to like. That's what he said. I will like it, but just to think of what it will lead to. So freedom is like the man walking into the mikvah. If I have a arousal right now to improve myself, to elevate myself, to come closer to Hashem, to come closer to Jewish tradition, to come closer to my purpose in the world, grab it. Grab it. That is real freedom. That is real freedom. And I'll just end with one more teaching I learned from Reb Shlomo, his definition of freedom. We might have actually have learned this already going back. And what he said is, the example is a person says, I feel depressed today. When I really think about it, I've been depressed all week. When I really think about it, I can't remember when I wasn't depressed. So Reb Shlomo said, do you know what freedom is? 1 minute from now, I don't have to be depressed. Freedom means no matter how much water is under the bridge, I can change. He said, that is what freedom is. That is what freedom is. So I'll give everyone a blessing that we learned the lesson of the Jubilee year, and we learned the lesson of this seemingly simple Rashi, because it really affects virtually everyone in one way or another. So we should all have the courage that when we have an arousal to better ourselves or try something new or take on a new project or anything along that line, that we live in the present. We don't get bogged down by voices telling us about our past or warning us about our future. Okay, so I just realized that I did not record this. Oy, Rabbana Shel Olam. Rabbana Shel Olam. Anyways, I'm